You'd think that people with billions of dollars would be immune to financial mistakes, right? Wrong. Billionaires make financial blunders that are so catastrophic, they lose hundreds of millions or even billions in single decisions. The difference is, their mistakes happen on a scale that's almost incomprehensible to regular people. Today, we're diving into the biggest financial mistakes that even billionaires make. And trust me, some of these will shock you. These aren't small errors. These are decisions that have destroyed fortunes, ruined reputations, and serve as cautionary tales even at the highest levels of wealth. Let's get into it. Over-leveraging and taking on too much debt. One of the most common mistakes billionaires make is over-leveraging themselves by taking on massive debt against their assets. This might sound crazy because why would someone worth billions need loans? But here's the thing. Many billionaires don't actually have billions in cash. Their wealth is tied up in stocks, real estate, and businesses. To access cash without selling assets and triggering taxes, billionaires borrow against their holdings. This strategy works brilliantly when asset values are rising, but it becomes catastrophic when markets crash. We've seen billionaires who borrowed billions against their stock portfolios suddenly face margin calls when share prices dropped, forcing them to sell at the worst possible time. Take the case of a tech billionaire who borrowed $3 billion against his company's stock when shares were at all-time highs. When the market crashed and his stock dropped 60%, he faced margin calls exceeding $1 billion. He was forced to sell massive amounts of stock at depressed prices, losing his controlling stake in the company he founded, and watching his net worth plummet from $12 billion to under $4 billion in months. The mistake isn't borrowing itself. It's borrowing too much without adequate cushion for market volatility. Financial advisors recommend keeping loan-to-value ratios below 30%, but many billionaires push to 50 or 60% to access more cash, leaving no room for error when markets turn. Poor diversification and concentration risk. Another massive mistake is keeping too much wealth concentrated in a single asset or company. Many billionaires made their fortunes by building companies, and they remain emotionally attached, refusing to diversify even when it makes financial sense. The classic example is founders who keep 90% or more of their net worth in their company's stock. When that company thrives, they look like geniuses. But when the company struggles, their entire fortune evaporates. We've witnessed tech billionaires who were worth $10 billion on paper see their wealth drop to under $1 billion when their companies face competition or regulatory issues. Financial advisors universally recommend diversification, but billionaires often ignore this advice. They believe in their companies so strongly that they can't imagine scenarios where things go wrong. But markets are unpredictable, industries change, and even dominant companies can fall from grace quickly. We've seen this play out repeatedly. Retail billionaires who didn't diversify before e-commerce disrupted their businesses. Media moguls who kept everything in traditional media before streaming changed the industry. Energy billionaires heavily invested in fossil fuels before renewable energy gained traction. Trusting the wrong people with their money. Billionaires are surrounded by advisors, wealth managers, accountants, and lawyers. The mistake many make is trusting these people without adequate oversight or verification. We're talking about financial advisors who steal millions, accountants who embezzle funds, and business partners who commit fraud. One billionaire lost over $500 million to a trusted advisor who was running a Ponzi scheme. The billionaire had known this advisor for 20 years and never questioned the consistently high returns. When the scheme collapsed, $500 million vanished. Another common mistake is hiring family members or friends to manage significant financial matters without ensuring they have proper qualifications. Nepotism in wealth management has cost billionaires hundreds of millions. A hotel billionaire hired his nephew to manage a $2 billion real estate fund. The nephew made terrible investments, didn't understand risk management, and lost $800 million before being removed. Even with qualified professionals, billionaires often fail to implement adequate checks and balances. They give single individuals too much control, don't require multiple approvals for large transactions, and don't conduct regular audits. These oversights create opportunities for theft and mismanagement. Emotional investments and vanity projects. Billionaires often make terrible investments driven by emotion rather than financial logic. We're talking about buying sports teams that lose money year after year, funding movies that flop spectacularly, or investing in businesses run by friends and family that have no realistic path to profitability. Sports team ownership is a perfect example. Many billionaires buy teams for prestige and passion, paying premiums far exceeding rational valuations. While some teams appreciate in value, many drain hundreds of millions in operating losses. One billionaire bought a basketball team for $2 billion, then spent another billion on a new arena and player salaries, only to watch the team's value stagnate while bleeding $50 million annually in losses. Vanity projects are even worse. Billionaires launching fashion brands, restaurants, nightclubs, or media companies because they think it's glamorous, not because sound business cases exist. These ventures typically lose tens or hundreds of millions before billionaires finally admit failure and shut them down. One tech billionaire invested $300 million launching a luxury lifestyle magazine because he wanted to be a media mogul. The magazine never achieved profitability, burned through cash, and folded after 5 years. That $300 million could have been invested in index funds and would have grown to over $600 million in the same time frame. Inadequate tax planning and estate planning. You'd think billionaires would have perfect tax strategies, but many make catastrophic mistakes that cost hundreds of millions in unnecessary taxes. The problem is often procrastination or overconfidence in their own judgment over professional advice. Estate planning failures are particularly expensive. Billionaires who die without proper estate plans can see 50% or more of their wealth consumed by estate taxes. We're talking about $5 billion estates that could have passed to heirs with minimal taxes through proper trusts and planning, instead leaving only $2.5 billion after government takes its share. One billionaire died unexpectedly at 62 without adequate estate planning. His $8 billion fortune was subject to estate taxes exceeding $3 billion. His heirs were forced to sell the family business to pay the tax bill, losing control of the empire he built. Ignoring succession planning for businesses. Many billionaires built their wealth through businesses they founded, and they make the critical mistake of not planning for succession. They believe they'll run their companies forever or that transitions will happen naturally, but lack of planning destroys value and creates chaos. We've seen billionaires die suddenly with no clear successor, leading to family battles, leadership vacuums, and company values plummeting. Other billionaires hand control to children who aren't qualified, watching businesses they spent decades building decline rapidly under incompetent management. One retail billionaire refused to discuss succession planning, insisting he'd work until he died. When he suffered a stroke at 75, the company had no CEO transition plan. The board appointed an interim CEO who made poor decisions, and the company lost 40% of its value within 2 years. Proper succession planning takes years. Identifying potential successors, training them, gradually transitioning responsibilities, and ensuring smooth handoffs. But many billionaires avoid these conversations because they don't want to confront mortality or relinquish control. So there you have it, the biggest financial mistakes even billionaires make. From over-leveraging and poor diversification to trusting the wrong people, making emotional investments, inadequate tax planning, ignoring succession planning, and falling for sophisticated frauds, billionaires prove that having money doesn't guarantee financial wisdom.